In this video, we're going to have a look at multiplication of integers. Multiplication and division of integers is similar to that of whole numbers. Your starting point is to know your multiplication tables. The only difference is that when multiplying with integers, you can also multiply with a negative number. So let's start off having a look at the pattern that multiplication forms. Let's take 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 1 will be 4, and 4 times 0 is 0. Can you see the pattern? On the left-hand side, we multiplied by a smaller number every single time. And on the right, the answer decreases by 4. Next up in our pattern would be 4 times minus 1. And if we continue the pattern on the right, the value will be minus 4. Similarly, if we now multiply 4 by minus 2, we will get minus 8. You will see that multiplying by 1 and multiplying by minus 1 gives us the same answer of 4. The only difference is when I multiply by the negative 1, my answer is negative that 4. Similarly, 4 times 2 is 8, and 4 times minus 2 is also the 8, but now negative 8. So when you multiply by a negative number, it simply switches your positive answer to a negative answer. So when I ask you to multiply 5 by minus 1, you already know that 5 times 1 is 5, and the minus simply switches it around to negative 5. Or if I ask you to calculate 6 times minus 3, 6 times 3 is 18, and the minus switches it to minus 18. The same pattern will be followed when I multiply a negative value by a positive. 6 times 3 is still 18, and the minus swaps it around to minus 18. So what will then happen when I multiply a negative value by another negative value? This time around, we start on the negative side, and when multiplying by a minus 1, it is swapped around to the other side, which means that our final answer here will be positive 5. So every time that you multiply by a minus, the sign of the answer changes. Remember that a bracket also indicates multiplication and is often used when the value is negative. In the first sum, we have 3 multiplied by minus 1. Therefore, our answer will be negative. In the second example, we multiply our previous answer with another minus 1, which means our answer of minus 3 will now change sign again and become positive 3. Next, we multiply by a third minus 1. So our previous answer will once again change sign to become minus 3. And in the fourth sum, we multiply this answer with another minus 1 to change the sign and end with positive 3 again. A useful conclusion to make here is that when you multiply by an even number of minuses, your answer will always be positive. And when multiplying an odd number of minuses, you will end with a negative answer. Because remember that multiplying by a minus will change the value to a negative, and multiplying by a second minus will change it back to positive. Multiplying by a third minus will make it negative again, and it will continue like this. In the first example, we need to determine the value of 7 times minus 4. 7 times 4 is 28, and because you are multiplying by a negative, it will be minus 28. In our second example, we have brackets indicating multiplication, and we start off by saying 8 times 5. That will give us 40. And because we have a minus multiplied by another minus, the answer will be positive 40 because we go from the negative back to the positive side again. In the third example, we now need to multiply 3 values with each other, and you can choose in which order you want to do that. I'm going to start off multiplying 4 by minus 3. 4 times 3 is 12, and this is of course minus 12 because there's only one negative. This should now be multiplied by positive 10. Next, 12 times 10 is 120, and once again I only have one negative, so my answer stays negative 120. You could also choose to directly write down the answer. Remember that we only have one negative here, and an odd number of minuses will always be a negative answer. Now you can say 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 times 10 is 120. In my fourth example, I'm going to start off determining the final answer sign, and because I have an odd number of minuses, the answer will be negative. Next, I can say that 20 times 30 is 600, and 600 times 1 stays 600. So my final answer minus 600.